Chinese President Xi Jinping on Friday said that solutions in science and technology are needed now more than ever for China's economic and social development. His comments came at a symposium in Beijing where he solicited opinions from scientists for how to enhance China's scientific and technological development. He also noted China's great number of scientific professionals and R&D spending, but also the need to improve the ecosystem for scientific innovation. So what is the current picture as China wraps up its 13th five-year plan and looks ahead? What have been the major milestones over the past 5 years? And as China faces increasing tech blockades from the U.S., what can be done to bolster progress at home? Joining me now to discuss all this are Gong, Professor of Economics at the University of International Business and Economics, and in Beijing via Skype, Professor Yuguang from the China Aerospace Science and Industry Corporation. Welcome, gentlemen, to both of you. We've heard from the Chinese president. Professor Yang, give us your takeaway from President Xi's speech.
Well, it is really impressive. So you see that in the past years, because you know that we are in developing countries, so we research in the science field mainly focusing on mastering and developing the technologies. Today, for the new areas, so you see we can expect to have more returns or profit from these technologies. And other critical point is the basic science, basic industry, and also the basic process, because all these factors are very essential for the final level of its science and technology level. So in the future, we will also pay more attention to the basic science, basic technology, and the basic process. This is what we mentioned, the frontier of science and technology.
Professor Gong, I mean, President Xi talked about a whole range of things, from the fact that development must target the growth of global science frontiers, serving the need of economic growth, fulfilling the significant needs of the country as a whole, and benefiting people's livelihood. That sounds like a tall order. I mean, how do you interpret these areas of emphasis from the Chinese president?
Well, my takeaway of his speech is that it's a very comprehensive speech, and also he refers to some of the problems we all know very well that have been in existence in Chinese scientific and research community for quite some time. For example, he emphasized the need to solve practical problems. And I think that's an issue that we all know very well, especially among the university community. He also emphasized the importance of basic research, which is an area that I think China still falls quite short compared to several advanced developed countries like United States and other countries. And he also mentioned improvement in the research community, in other words, the system here. And I think, coming from my academic background, we all know very well, the shortfalls and also the problems associated with the research institutional system here. There ways to be a lot of improvement. For example, we know that professors spend a lot of time doing administrative work. Some of the money is not really spent on real research, and that we have a lot of interference from government bureaucrats, and all these issues we all know very well. And I think it's kind of a little bit difficult, I think, to solve all of them once and for all and quickly. And I think President Xi's speech points to the need to move quickly in that direction to resolve all these problems. I mean, if you look at the total expenditures on R&D as a percentage of China's GDP, it's actually pretty large. I mean, it's not small at all. We spend a lot of money on R&D. But I think, I just have to be honest here that the outcome of that expenditure is probably falling a little bit short of what we would expect of an investment like this, scale of this kind of a scale. So I think, there are problems, and we need to address these things.
All right, Professor Gong, you talked about the numbers looking good. We do have some of them to share with you guys. R&D expenditure in China in 2019 amounted to 2 trillion yuan, or $321 billion. That is up 12.5% year on year. But you're basically saying that there are a lot of things behind these numbers, beneath these numbers.
Well, my opinion about this issue is that there's a lot of research funded by the government, by other ministries, for example, that still wait to be improved. In other words, the way to spend this money has to generate comparable results, comparable outcomes. We do file a lot of patents, but and if you look at the real revolutionary innovations and inventions coming out of China for the last, say, 200 years, compared to some other countries, it's not a very good picture here. Even though we made great strides over the years, but I think China is pretty good, at least for the last 30, 40 years. China is pretty good in catching up with the West in terms of developing technologies. When it comes to engineering aspect, we're actually doing pretty well. But when it comes to really revolutionary innovations, things of profound impact on society, we don't have many here. So I think that's one area that we need to really improve. And I think it has a lot to do with the basic research. I think President Xi emphasized the need for basic research. And this is one area, in my view, that the scientists need to be left alone and they own things. Great inventions comes by accident. It's almost like a perfect storm. Great people, eccentric people do great things, and if they're left alone, they do their own things. They don't get much interference from outsiders, and wonderful things will happen. I think it is in this aspect that we need to make some improvement, especially when it comes to really cutting-edge basic research professors in top-tier universities in China.
Right. Professor Yang, the Chinese president talked about improving the ecosystem for scientific innovation and building, top-level universities and research centers, labs. How do you understand his emphasis on those areas?
Well, Professor Gong have already mentioned some problems in our ecosystem, such as the many scientists and the technicians paid much time on the administrative issues, and also there are many problems on the management of human resources and also the management of scientific research project itself. And also, that in 1990s, there is a famous joke in China that the income of the scientists and the technicians are far below those who are selling eggs. So you see, although this is a joke, but this shows the fact that the income of the technicians and scientists are relatively low in the years past. So because of the enhancement and the increase of expense on the science and technology, the income of scientists and the technicians are also raised. So this is a very good thing for the future, what we talked about, the ecosystem for the scientific research.
But Professor Yang, on the other hand, China did make some progress, pretty remarkable progress in areas such as AI, right? And think about, this TikTok, ByteDance, and China's, technological firms over there. But on the other hand, China cannot even make, chips small enough to fit in a cell phone. How do you reconcile with all these conflicting facts?
Well, I don't think that's really a conflict. You see that we are developing countries, so in the years past, our mainly focus is on the technologies which can have direct returns to our economy. So you see that the AI technology, although I'm not an expert on AI technology, but I can see many applications on AI technology, such as the TikTok. And today, every day, if you have a phone call on these kind of service phone calls to the banks or to the product providers, many cases you can hear the voice of an AI. So you see, we already have very good applications on the AI. But you see, the final level of AI is determined by the basic science and the basic technology and the basic research, as we have discussed. So you see, in the future, we should increasing our focus and also increasing more investment on this kind of basic research to enhance the final level of our AI.
Professor Gong, the stereotype is that Chinese students excel at its STEM education, at their STEM, their education they receive. Think about the makeup of Western classrooms of STEM students. Chinese students sometimes make up a quarter, a third, if not more of them. But the Chinese president said there are still shortfalls and room to grow.
Well, I think what you have been saying refers to a very famous question raised by the great Chinese rocket scientist, Mr. Chen Xuesen, and he asked this question, why China hasn't really produced a great thinker in the science field. China is indeed very good at cranking out engineers, scientists that are trained STEM background, but I think what's lacking here is that truly people who are really creative, who are really original, as I mentioned, who are who have the capability to come up with sort of revolutionary ideas that impose a profound impact on society. We don't have many people like this, and this is actually a very small. I want to emphasize this is a very small group of people. I mean, if you look at the great inventions in history, there's only a few people that have been doing this, and these people have their special traits. For example, they probably don't get along very well with society. They're very eccentric people. They're very stubborn people. They're very persistent people, and they don't bend to authority. And all these traits, in my opinion, don't quite resonate well with the traditional Chinese society. So, so we need to improve on that aspect. We need to have a college system that that could be accommodating to admitting these people that may not be doing very well in all aspects, in all disciplines, but especially good in one particular area. So, this is the a very basic higher education issue here. And I think, we need to, at one side, I totally agree that we need to produce a massive amount of those very good engineers and scientists, but also at the same time, our system needs to accommodate those very, rare people, these eccentric people who do wonderful things if they are left alone.
Professor Yang, I mean, we have about 40 seconds left. Your final thoughts on how China can be a more innovative society, coming up with more cutting-edge technologies?
Well, for increasing or enhancing the innovation, I think what we have called we have discussed the ecosystem is very important, because you see that you can give the scientists more free time and give them more chance, especially the chance to be failure. You see that for any kind of creativity and innovation, you should encourage them and let them don't worry about the failure. So you see, this is very important for the innovation. And in the future, also, you see that we have more investment now today than years before. So we can have more chance to pay more attention and to make our research more comprehensive. You see that because we are a developed country before, we only focusing on money on certain area. In the future, we can have more chance on other areas.
A lot needs to be done. Thank you very much, Professor Yang and Professor Gong. Thank you for your insight. And that will do it for this edition of The Point. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing. Thank you for watching.